Welcome, welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. And today, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about crafting your life, how someone crafted her life, and really open up your vision of how you can find your purpose and you can craft this life that you were meant to live. So to help me in this discussion, my dear, dear friend, Heidi Totten. Welcome, Heidi.
Thank you, Mary. I'm so excited to do this.
Oh, this is going to be amazing. Heidi, we've known each other, what do you think, about 4 years, 5 years, somewhere in
Yeah,
there? Something
something
like that.
like
I
that.
mean, we certainly both knew of each other for longer than that, but
hmm
just became synced as our purposes together, somewhere around 4 years ago. And I just was so in awe of what you do and who you are that you're just a perfect fit to be on my podcast. So let's tell everybody, first of all, how I met. So I was participating in a live charity auction, and one of the things that was there that you could buy and bid on was this trip to Kenya to do a humanitarian mission. And I thought, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. And oh my gosh, what am I going to have to bid so that I get this? I really want this. So I put in this high bid to start with, and lo and behold, I was the only one that bid on it.
It was meant to be.
I think everyone else looked at that and said, "Oh, yeah, I don't want that. I'll take these golf tours or I
hmm
will do, this year of theater, but no, go to Kenya and serve on something that I know nothing about. No, don't sign me up for that." So lo and behold, you and I were connected.
hmm
And we began this friendship and began this dream of going to Kenya together and then just falling in love with your cause, your why, your purpose, and standing beside you ever since then.
And it's been so much fun.
It has been.
It's been so much fun.
So,
Especially my morning jaunts where I'm opening up my phone and seeing what workout Mary has done for the day to inspire me.
well, there is always something like that. And that's part of, what we're talking about today, that everyone has a different sort of why. I knew from the get-go that I was not going to start my own foundation. I knew from the get-go that I was not going to find one place to serve in this world and put all my eggs there, because there were so many other people who are doing that. And my purpose, my meaningful life was going to be in finding those people that were communing with my soul and supporting them. And that's what I found in you. So Heidi, I don't know quite where to even to start this podcast, but I think maybe if we talk about crafting your meaningful life, let's talk about where you were just prior to discovering your calling to Kenya.
Okay.
Did you feel like there was something out there that you were searching for, or did this just hit you like a ball of fire and you knew it was yours?
Well, I would like to backtrack a little bit. My mom
Okay.
says I reinvent myself every 7 years. She
Okay. Well,
said
and
that,
as far as the rhythmic rhythms of the world, yes, we do. Yeah.
yes. And ever since I was a little kid, I've always been adventurous. In fact, when I was a baby, that was what my mom said was, "I hope she has adventures." And she didn't realize like what she was putting out there for me in
Setting
saying
up for
that.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, I've always been in human design, I'm a manifesting generator. In disc, I'm a high I. In personality types, I'm always like the visionary that goes and does things, that's just the core of who I am. And so when in looking back, I wasn't really expecting a big gobsmack, like your life is going to change. because I was on a path where everything was changing anyway. You know, I was exploring new ideas and new things, and I was always in a mindset of what can we create? What else is possible? What cool things are going to happen? I jumped into the entrepreneur space after a corporate career for 15 years. And so it was really, you know, I was just on this path of exploration at the time. You know, I had no desire actually to ever go anywhere in Africa. I will admit that I am not a heat, dust, and bugs girl, and I say that all the time. But what got me there was peer pressure. And it was friends saying, you should come with us. You should go. You should come with us. And I was like, so here's the thing. I remember in 1985 when there was a famine in East Africa and they had concerts and things like that. I'm like, I don't want to go. That's scary. And it looks hot. And, you know, so I had every excuse in the book. But it was really funny. What opened Kenya for me was I was at an author's retreat. So it was called an inspired authors retreat. And I was in the middle of a drum circle. I found myself in the middle of a drum circle. I had never been in a drum circle. I was a little like, oh, this is super weird and woo-woo, and I'm going to be transported to another realm. And
wake up as a snake.
That's kind of what happened. But as I was in the middle of this drum circle, it was like the scene switched in my brain, and I was in Kenya, and I was on the savannah. I was on safari, and there was just this row of male lions, and they started to roar, and I was running towards them as fast as I could go.
Towards them, not away from them.
Yes. And I jumped, and the lions disappeared, the drumming stopped, and I just started sobbing. And I booked my trip that week to go to Kenya. What was interesting was that I had just heard this story about how it's the females that are the hunters, but it's the males with the roar. And so actually, if you run towards the roar, you're running away from fear, right? Because it's the females, but the lions will roar to get you to turn so the females can capture you. So I was running towards the roar. And that's what it talks about, is run towards the roar, because that's really like expanding your comfort zone. Because you're going, you know, and I, ever since then, I've always talked about, like, why do we have this mythical comfort zone? We have these sayings, right? And I'm not going to call them out, but I just, every time I hear everything you want is on the other side of fear, I just say, well, that doesn't sound fun. How about I just expand my comfort zone to receive that? That sounds better, right? Because otherwise you're going through fear, you're going through pain, you're going through your comfort zone, instead of just saying, no, I'll have that too.
Yeah.
Just expand it.
Yeah. That's a whole new different way to look at that. Yeah. I love that.
My tagline is, I'm not your comfort zone. Don't hang out with me if you want to be comfortable.
I would second that. I know that to be true. Yes. Even though my entire time in Kenya with you, I felt completely comfortable. There was never a time that I was afraid. There was never a time that I wasn't at peace with where I was and being there and the work that we were doing. So I would not necessarily throw that down as the gauntlet. You know, don't hang out with me if you don't want to be afraid. I guess you give such a safe place to everyone who wants to step in. And I love that about you. It's just so easy and so comfortable to be with you in your safe place. I love that. Thank you. Yeah. So then you came and you knew that this something was out there. You went to Kenya, and
on day 3, my heart blew open. And I remember texting my husband and saying, I think I'm in trouble. I think I'm going to come back like a lot. And he was like, okay, because that's kind of how my husband is.
He is. Good old Dave. We love Dave.
Yes. He's just the type, I'm like, hey, I bought a whale. Okay, I'll build an aquarium. I mean, that's kind of his, you know, that's kind of his motto. But I think that's when the calling happened, right? And that's where, and this is what's interesting, is that since then, I've been to Kenya 28 times, and I've been going for 10 years, and my organization has been going for 10 years. And people will say to me, oh, you're so lucky you found your purpose. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, oh, Kenya. I'm like, Kenya's not my purpose. Kenya's a vehicle for me to develop my purpose. But I'm also a wife and a mom and a friend and a sister and a daughter. And I'm like, I have all these other things that I do. And I started listening to that conversation and people saying, I need to find my purpose. And I started thinking, no, 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 no. Your purpose is you. You're on this planet like for you and to grow you. It's not, your purpose is not outside of yourself. And I was telling you that I was listening to Let Them over the weekend, and I was like, thank you, Mel, you just validated that, right? Is that when we are looking outside of ourselves for things, then we're not actually focusing on our own growth. We're looking for something else. And otherwise, like now, when things come, I'm like, do I want that vehicle? Is that a vehicle that's going to help me grow? Sure, let's do it. And if I'm like, nope, that doesn't feel like it's in alignment, no, that's okay. I'll just leave it aside, And so, but because I internalized it, and, honestly, when I first started going, I was like, oh, I found my purpose. I found my thing. And then I was like, it's not like I'm the only one that's ever gone to Kenya. It's not my thing. It's a thing. And what we do there is a thing. But I'm just like, it's really the vehicle for my own personal growth. And I just create that space for transformation for other people that want to use it as a vehicle as well and want to come along as well. So my purpose is really just to grow me, to be the best me. Because if I'm the best me, then I can hold space for you to be the best you. Right? Then I'm not trying to change you. You're not trying to change me. I'm just saying, this is my purpose is to be me. It's a simple and yet complicated concept for us to grasp.
That, and that we are in alignment that way. That I know that my purpose in life is nothing more, nothing less than to be my best me, my best self. And when we are living our best self, there's nothing narcissistic about that.
No.
When I am my best self, all I want for you is your best self, and that we get to be there together. The best self would never want to be there by themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And it makes it more fun because then you're not worried about all the things and all the stuff and what we're supposed to be doing, what we should be doing. You're like, okay, I'm just going to be in alignment with what is the highest and best for me today, because that's all I'm guaranteed. And then you just go from there, and it doesn't mean that I don't have the worries or that I live it perfectly. I mean, there are times where I'll open Facebook and be like, in fact, I just did this. I was like, I just opened Facebook and all of the family Easter pictures. And I'm like, I didn't take a picture of my family for Easter again.
I was the same way this morning. I didn't take one picture. I was so immersed in what my family was doing and loving having them all here, and my family is grown now, and I have my grandchildren. And to see all 15 of us standing there with love, not any contention, that is the miracle of Easter too.
Yeah. For sure.
And I didn't want to get my camera out and take the focus away from that beautiful Easter. So it's easy to get into that comparison mode. And sometimes people make it so hard as they try and find their purpose in life. But it's so easy if you simply ask, is this the very best thing for me? And you and I both know what that's like, to feel that confirmation inside of, this is the very best thing for me. And you don't have to worry about if it's the best thing for the world.
Right.
Because if it's best for you, that's the way the universe is set up. It's automatically the best for everyone else. I can remember being in business, and when people would come in and they would say, Mary, I've decided to take another job. or I've decided to move out of state, or I've decided to go on a mission, or whatever it was. And I'm like, they're my right-hand person. How will I survive without them? And I got caught up in worry and fear of what I was going to do without them. And what I learned over the years is if I simply asked them, Craig, do you know that this is the right thing for you? And they would say, I do. And then I know it's the right thing for me too. Because the universe is not set up that what's right for you is wrong for me. Even though I might not see it at the time, even though I might be facing, okay, well, I've got to get on the job hunt and I've got to find someone to replace it. Even then, in spite of all those things, that it was such an easy thing to accept, just to know that I was going to find something that was even better for me because it was right for him and he knew it. It's such an easy thing when we look at life in that direction.
Well, I think it's so important to just expect miracles and expect the best situation, for everything.
Yeah.
In fact, I was just talking to a friend that is leading a trip to Kenya in June, and she was stressed because the flights changed and they were going to put the team in the next day and, causing all these issues. And I said, well, let's see what happens. Well, it turned out that they were able to switch flights at no additional cost. That is the original flight they wanted to go on, because Delta had changed their flights. And, when Delta changes flights, then they have to accommodate whatever you want to be on. So now they're on the best flight path possible. No price increase, no, the original price or the original flight they wanted to get on. And I said, look at you, just manifesting like a manifesting maven, and when it's happening to me, I'll go internally into, and then I have all these little Post-it notes all over my desk that say things like, this is what's happening right now. Choose your response, right? And I look at my Post-it notes. I'm like, oh yes, this is the Heidi that we're being right now.
Yeah.
Is we are the choose your response in order to determine the outcome, Heidi, right?
Yeah.
And, if we're really trying to be our best selves, then it's choosing an identity of what that looks like. It's really being conscious about it, intentional about it, and saying, I am the type of person that doesn't react to a flight change with panic and chaos. I'm the type of person that reacts and says, I wonder what else is possible and what's going to come out of this. I wonder how I'm being redirected, right? But you have to train yourself to do that. That doesn't come naturally. Naturally, the world is in chaos and teaches chaos, right? Teaches drama. But if I just say, isn't that interesting? What else is possible? Well, anything else is possible. So,
yeah. And I tend to think less that the world is in chaos as much as the humans that inhabit this planet
true.
are in chaos. And that if I step into the broader picture of being just part of this planet, that's when I'm okay with whatever changes come. But people, we're so fickle. We try and make the craziest things happen in our lives. And just by being at peace with whatever's there is the best for me.
That's actually why I kind of gave up on goal setting a while back.
Yeah, long time ago gave up on those things.
I was like, I don't know, what are we doing today? Because what I found was that either in writing down the goal, I just made it happen, or I stuck too much to a framework that was not serving me,
Right.
and if I had stuck to my goals, I would have never gotten on a plane to Kenya because that was not one of my goals. Right. And so I just think of have you ever seen the movie Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow?
No, but
You've
sounds
heard of
like
that
one
movie?
I should be on. Yes. I haven't seen it.
So yeah, it's kind of 90s, I think. It's a movie where in one scene, in one frame, she gets on a train and goes home and finds out that her husband's having an affair or boyfriend or something. On the other scene, she misses the train, goes home, and doesn't find that out. But then the sliding doors it talks about, like when you miss those doors, sometimes it's redirecting you and preventing you from an experience, and sometimes you loop back into the correct experience for you. It's a fascinating movie, but it really talks about how in every moment, every single moment, we make a decision of what to do right now. And like right now, I could get up and I could leave my house and leave you sitting here, or I can engage in the conversation. At any time, we can make different choices. And so being intentional about those choices is what develops us. That's our purpose, is to be intentional in our choices and to not be in a frame of mind where it's like, everything bad happens to me, or everything, like everything goes wrong in my life, or I don't have what she has, or I want what she has, and that constant comparison. And instead just saying, what do I choose right now in this moment for me?
And I think that is one of the issues that we have with social media. The biggest issue we have is that it does promote this very ineffective comparison issue of, oh, well, I guess I should be going to Kenya. I'm a loser because I haven't found something so magnanimous as Kenya.
Right.
Or wow, look at Mary, age 71, and she goes to the gym every day. I must be a horrible person if I can't get there at age 50. I mean, that comparison, rather than using those things to inspire us. Mm-hmm. And if you're that kind of person that then train, you know how the movie Train Your Dragon? Mm-hmm. It's called Train Your Algorithm. Train your algorithm that Meta has for you on what is good for you to see. Mm-hmm. And I actually set about to train that so that when things would come on my screen, I wouldn't just move past them quickly, or, I actually left the platform. I did this for about 3 months. I just left the platform when they were showing me all these, supermodels in their great positions and that they never age and those kind of, I just left the platform. Or if they were showing me too many ads on shoes, I would just leave the platform. Meta does not want you to leave no matter what.
That's true.
And they will just stop. They're like, oh, she leaves if we show her this. Mm-hmm. Stop showing her those things. And now, after 3 months of doing that consistently, I only get the best things in my feed, the best projects that are out there, the women with the best intentions of helping people be their best selves. Mm-hmm. I don't get all that other stuff, and it takes conscious effort, but I know what builds me and I know what doesn't. And sometimes even in being able to do that, we still get caught up though in what someone else is doing.
Oh, it's so true.
So Heidi, I think more than anyone else, you could speak to this. So those women who look at what I do, look at what you do, look at what dozens of people that we know do, and take it to that place of, I'm such a loser. Or the step that's a better in front of that, how do I come to know? How do you talk to them? What do you say to them?
Well, I think one thing is that you don't know what timing you're going to have in life for doing the things that you want. I mean, Kenya interrupted me when my son was 11 and my daughter was 9. It was totally inconvenient, right? And I was able to bring my daughter to Kenya 10 times over the past 10 years. And it's our thing. And she's grown up there, like she's been raised by Maasai warriors and by these women that have doted on her. And they call her baby baboon, and now she's an adult and she just went with me a few weeks ago. So then I think, okay, what if she hadn't had that experience? Maybe that was for her too, right? So trusting in the timing of things. Our programs director, Marissa Waldrop, said to me once, "You're not that much older than me." And I started laughing and I said, "I have done all of Kenya in our age difference." Like it's a huge amount of work that I've done since I was 40, right? Like because I first went to Kenya when I was 43. So in that 10-year period from 43 to 53 has been Kenya. Now she started going to Kenya earlier in life, but I'm like, you don't realize like what people have experienced that makes that difference, right? Is that you're 71, I'm 53. I have to look at it like Mary has had 18 years more experiences on this planet. So if somebody is younger and they're looking and they're saying, "Oh, I wish I had done that," or, "I could never do that," just wait. But if you have the dream in your mind that you could, if you switch it to, "I could do that." It's like when I see Lamborghinis, right? There's a Lamborghini shop kind of near my house. And I'll see Lamborghinis and I'll think, and this is what I think. I can go into judgment and I can say, "I'd never buy that. I'd never spend that kind of money, blah, blah, blah." Or I could just say, "I'll have that." Doesn't mean I have to have it. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go out and buy a Lamborghini. It just means that I'm willing to open up to the possibility that if somebody wanted to give me a Lamborghini, I'd take it. And then I'd probably sell it. However, why do we close ourselves off and say, "I could never do that. I could never have that. I could never be that"? Instead, you can simply look at somebody that you're admiring and saying, "I'll have that. I'll be that. I'll choose that." And then again, you have to actually decide to do it. I mean, I can say, "I totally want to be married when I'm 71. I totally want to have that." And you're telling me
you're going to have that long before you get to be 71.
But you're telling me, here's what I did to have it. And that's really the thing, is that I'm like, I chose into Kenya. My very, very bestie, who I've been best friends since college, she finally came with me in 2023. And it was so funny because she had never been out of the country. Coming to Kenya, first passport experience. And I said, "What are you worried about?" And she said, I'm worried I'm going to change. I'm worried I'm going to change, and that this is going to blow my heart open like it did yours. And then I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to figure out how to get back to Kenya. And I said, and what if that happens? What if that happens? What does that mean? Or you could just say, "I went and it was an experience." Now, she cried every single day and she absolutely loved it. And I saw it change her. I saw it soften her. I saw her heart open. I see this transformation because she chose into something. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that if you're willing to just say, "Yes, I choose into whatever experiences life has for me as they come," or I don't choose them because they're not in alignment, then you're living your best life, right? But if I just simply say no, and I could never have that, then, I just tell people, "Well, isn't that interesting? What else is possible?" Those are the two questions I say all the time. Isn't that interesting? What else is possible?
What else is possible?
And not everybody wants to come to Kenya. It's why I asked the question, "Do you want to go to Kenya?" And it's funny, the responses. It's been such an experiment.
I've heard you ask that question to people dozens and dozens of times.
I'll say, "Do you want to go to Kenya?" And these are the things. They're like, "Yes." "How much does it cost?" Sometimes they say, "I don't know. How much does it cost?" And I'm like, "Well, first of all, if you don't want to come to Kenya, does it matter how much it costs? And if you do want to go to Kenya, then let's figure that out."
Does it matter what it costs?
What does it matter what it costs? But you can kind of see where their brain is going. Or people who are like, "No." And then I'm like, "Okay." And then I don't have to ask them again. Then I know where they stand. And so it's just being clear on, and one of the things that I think is so important is to just be able to train yourself. What are my yeses and what are my nos? What does that feel like in my body? If somebody asks me to go and do something, if they're like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" If I can say yes or no. And once you understand that about you, then it makes life so much more simple. because no, I don't feel like doing that. Nope, that's not a hard yes. Like that's a hard no. Or I'd like to think about that and give yourself time to think about it. So, but really being able to create that boundary for yourself as well as creating that experience for yourself of this is my yes, this is my no, this is my, I want to think about it. So like liberating. It really
Yeah.
is.
So we've been talking now for, let's see, about 30 minutes. And yet we've not yet told anybody, what do you do in Kenya?
Well, it's funny because I've actually been pondering this because I typically would say we help families with economic development and self-reliant, which is just as ambiguous and out there as like,
Yeah.
and so I've shifted into starting to say, just to see how it lands, we help families grow their own food so that they can eat and so that they can sell it to earn an additional income. Because self-reliance and economic development is so broad, but saying
Yeah.
we help them how to grow their own food,
So like,
or
am
we
I
help them
teaching
learn how to grow their own
classes?
food.
I'm not teaching classes. No. No.
Right. No, we teach them how to grow their own food so that they can eat and so that they can sell it for income. That's the core of what we do. And all the other projects are to help support that. But if we can't teach them that to start, if they're not willing to partner with us in that model, nothing else really works.
And there are so many projects that you take on to accomplish that goal. I mean, that I participated in when I was there. Your grow towers, the garden towers. You devised this revolutionary way to grow all the things a family needs in this one, what is it, 4.5 feet wide?
Yeah, it's actually it's an about 4 foot by 4 foot space in a cube. And each garden tower has 120 plants. I actually just ran these stats last week because somebody asked me how many garden towers would be in an acre. And I was like, an acre? That's a lot.
That's a
I
lot of
was
garden
like,
towers.
that's a lot of garden towers. But I thought, okay, if you were to plant kale, which is what we start with to grow, if you were to plant kale in an acre, how many plants would that be? And then you can fit 120 plants in a garden tower. And so how many plants, dividing it into a garden tower. And I figured out that if you took 363 garden towers, it equals the amount of an acre of food, but it's about a fourth of an acre of garden towers, right? So literally
Yeah.
garden towers will 4x the space,
'Cause
or
I look at
however, the calculation.
the first place that we did our garden towers at the school. And we had a space that was that we actually used was probably a 15 by 15 piece, not very big. And how many garden towers did we put in that 15 by 15 space? It was like 24.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because you're
Yeah.
growing vertically as well as horizontally. And that was enough to supply not only the school with all of their needs, but then they get to do what? They get to sell it, they get to earn money, they get to do all these other things. And that first 6 months or 3 months, because they grow so rapidly there, when you sent the photos of what we had done,
Yeah.
I was just like, we did that. I shoveled that dirt that's inside of that. I carried the
I have
water.
pictures.
Yeah. I carried the water that started those plants thriving. And to see now what it's doing, we were like a day's work. This little team of, were there 8 of us?
12.
12 women. And no men. There were obviously some Kenyans there. But we just accomplished so much. And then later on, we got to be involved in putting up the water tower that had been in plans for so long. And just the joy that was going to be there as they were going to have fresh water. And you all hear the stories about how that they have to go and walk 2 hours one way to get water and then back and then 2 hours and then back. I mean, like, this is your life.
Takes all day.
Oh, it takes
Yeah.
all day. And then the threat of wild animals, the threat of rape. I mean, all these things that are going on. And we brought a water tower. It seems like such a simple thing, but to them, it was everything.
Well,
And
the underlying power of life is time, right? It's not even money. If a woman is spending 5 or 6 hours a day just walking to water, then where does she have time in her day to learn anything else? And so I say all
or
the
to
time,
teach
women,
anything else.
or to teach anything. Yeah, I say women's empowerment is time. And if we can reduce their number of trips to water, or if we can give them a chicken business and they can sell eggs and they can earn an income so that they can buy water, or like, I mean, all of these components, I call it like my network marketing model, right? Because I'm like, the only thing that should ever be in a network marketing model is something that is used within 30 days. That's my feeling. Because otherwise it's, why would you order, I mean, I love doTERRA, but man, I've got oils all over the place that have not been used within 30 days and they want me to order more, right? And so I look at this in the same way. People always need food. People always need food. So if you're growing food to sell, then you're always going to have something to sell. Where if you're spending your time working on jewelry, making jewelry, doing beadwork, which a lot of these women do,
Yeah.
then they're spending hours making the beads and then they're able to sell it for what, $5? And I'm like, if you spent your time growing food and selling that, then you're going to make that $5 over and over and over.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to teach that business model to these women to say, this is where you put your time. And it's so funny because as we're seeing this shift, these women are like, I do beadwork when I feel like it, but this makes me money.
Yes.
And so it's shifting their mindset into,
Yes.
instead of just trying to sell to tourists, they're trying to create their own economy within their own community. And that's really what, like that's business, that's entrepreneurship. And that's what I know. And so that's what I teach. And all of the other things support that. But really the fundamental thing is that I'm trying to teach is that self-reliance, and for them to see that they actually have economic opportunities everywhere, but they need to learn the right skills and the right model to do it. So.
And you've heard me say this 100 times, or if not that, 1,000,000, Heidi, that teach a man to, or give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Teach a woman to fish, and you feed the world.
Yes.
That's what you're doing. And we as women went to teach, and now, they are feeding the world. This is the concept. And then in our down days, when we weren't, making water towers and garden towers, we taught classes. We sewed underwear. Such a simple thing for us. And can you imagine living your life sitting on the ground without underwear? Can you imagine
No.
men who have never seen underwear, their second thoughts on raping someone because they are wearing underwear? And providing hygiene and teaching them how to sew their own personal hygiene kits. I mean, to create a sewing center where they can go in there and learn and earn a wage that they can sell underwear and hygiene products that they are making. It's just the model that you have set up is unbelievable. You are changing how women think of themselves and see themselves. I remember being there and talking to one woman who could speak English, and about, it was interesting just to sit in this group of women and to realize that all of them had genital mutilation. I was the only one. And to ask, and how painful it is and why? Well, because I want a warrior to like me. I want a warrior to love me. I don't want to be rejected. I want to be accepted. And that aha moment when I realized their motivations aren't any different than ours, that
No.
they're the same. We want a warrior. We want to be loved and accepted in our community. And if that's what it took, I hope to shout 99% of the women in the United States would probably be doing it. But we have set up the culture where that is not a way. And I remember that you told me, you had said to one of the warriors, you actually are brave enough to do this, do you want your wife to enjoy sex? And they were like, oh, yeah. What you're requiring of her eliminates the possibility of her ever enjoying sex. And to
And
give
the
them that
pressure often comes from the women.
oh yeah,
Like, the women
absolutely.
will say, like, well, you're not a woman. And I pushed back and I said, do you think I'm not a woman because I wasn't circumcised? I have 2 children, I'm married. Oh no, you're a woman in your culture. But in our culture, you're not a woman if you haven't gone through it. And I was like, and that's when I realized, I was like, okay, I can't do anything to try and help with that. It has to come from within,
Yep.
because we can't go in there and say, this is traumatic. Don't do, this is their
Stop
rite of
this.
passage.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to change it from within, and they are changing it from within. And what can we go in and do to support them? Well, we can teach them how to sew underwear.
Yeah.
Like, we can give them the tools and the resources and the skills to educate their daughters so that their daughters have other opportunities, and so that their daughters say, we don't want this, we're ending this in our lifetime. One of the things that I've really been, and I'm actually going to go to another writer's retreat in a few weeks, because I'm working on a book about kin keeping and the things that mothers pass on to daughters, and the concept of, this is what gets to be transferred, this is what gets to be transformed, and this is what gets left behind. And in the Maasai community, the women are doing that. They're saying, okay, we've transferred these skills to our daughters. We've transformed these skills because we've learned better. And their daughters are saying, and this gets left behind. And that's in every culture in the world. From generation to generation, we see that shift, right? Like, whether you were raised in the 60s or the 80s, there's a huge shift in just how you live and what you do. And of course, now with technology, our kids are growing up in a completely different world. And our grandkids, and great grandkids, it's just going to be mind boggling. And so, so patience and generational change, it just takes time. And I keep saying, you know what? I've only been there for 10 years. Would I ever expect to end FGM in 10 years? No. And would I ever expect to be the one to end it? No. Because it has to be a choice from the inside because of other changes taking place. And sometimes it really is just, let's sit down. I'll teach you how to sew your own underwear, and we'll have a conversation so that I can understand what your life is like, and you can understand what my life is like, and just, we can accept that both of us grew up on different planets entirely.
Yeah.
Truly. It's not like they're choosing it it's not like they're choosing it and they have choice, right?
Right.
We have different choices. So, yeah.
What you're doing with your life, Heidi, in crafting a meaningful life is pretty phenomenal.
Thank you.
I have a hard time imagining, but it may yet be something you come face to face with. But have I made a difference in this planet? What is my legacy? For me, I look at you and I think, okay, that's pretty clear. She's made a huge difference and her legacy is huge. But I also know that, like with me, people ask me and say that to me sometimes, and I'm very clear with them. My legacy is not necessarily all the nonprofits I've supported, or the exercise videos I left behind, or my legacy is not that I wrote a book and climbed Kilimanjaro. That's not my legacy.
Right.
My legacy is if I made a difference in one person's life
Yes.
and then two people's lives. My legacy then, and my number one legacy, is my children. I birthed them. I gave them life. I taught them. And yes, I've done all these other things, but I've left behind 3 children who are now doing the same things, and teaching my grandchildren who are now doing the same things. And when my little granddaughter at the time, who was 9, and now she's just turned 15, asked me, Grandma, why are you going up Kilimanjaro if you are so afraid? And I said, because we can do hard things. And when you get to the point where you're asking yourself, can I possibly do this or go through this? You'll remember, my grandma did hard things, and I have her blood, and I can too. There are little things that we do in our lives and huge things we do in our lives. I will never do what you have done, but it doesn't make my legacy any less important. But I honor and support and really sing praises for the legacy that you are living behind. And I would like you to share your final word to my listeners, who are 85% women, what you feel about their legacy.
The whole idea of 100 Humanitarians, which is what the organization is named, is what is the power of 100 people working together on any project in the world to create positive change. And for me, Kenya is that project, and everything shifted after 100 people joined me in Kenya. It was on my 10th expedition. But what is your Kenya? Because your Kenya doesn't have to be Kenya. What is the thing that you want to change? What is the problem you want to solve in the world? And where are your 99, right? That want to solve the same problem. And what is the power when you reach that? It becomes a tipping point. And so finding people, like-minded people who can help you on your journey and that you can support on your journey, isn't that what life is really all about? Is that your legacy is my legacy. I'm one of your 100. You're one of my 100.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be different silos. It can just be, yes, I'm one of Mary's 100 and she's one of mine. And so we're working together to solve this problem, whatever it might be.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time, Heidi, and taking time away from your family and your job, and still on top of that, you do all of this work with the 100 Humanitarians. If you'd like to learn more about Heidi, we've included links on the back end of this podcast, which would include the 100 Humanitarian website. And actually, my friend Pule and I are on there because we have 100 Women of Hope that support Heidi's, and you can become one of our 100 Women of Hope. And I will also have on there, hopefully she'll share with us some social media links so that we can follow her on social media. And I want to show Heidi something. I'm going to turn my camera here. So sitting next to me is this beautiful angel. And she has this look on her face of like she's looking down at something. And I always pictured that she was looking down at me. Yesterday for Easter, my daughter had taken my sphere stone from Kenya and had polished it and brought it back to me for Easter. And I'm going to try and move my camera. And there it is. And my angel is looking down at my sphere, at this stone that represents to me finding your mission, finding your purpose, for having the vision. And I brought this home not knowing, I knew it was powerful, but I didn't know how powerful it is for me. And there it is, to remind me every day to craft my meaningful life. You inspire me every day, Heidi.
Right back at you.
All right, my friend. Until next time, remember, ponder, give some thought. Don't just close this episode and be done. Ponder, how is it that you are choosing to craft your meaningful life? Heidi, thank you so much for being with us today.
Crafting a Meaningful Life.